Like, how can you spend Bitcoin? You understand it? Like, you will sell it now and like you will be like the pizza guy. And I'm like, yeah, I get it, but I earn in Bitcoin, so I have to spend in Bitcoin, right? Like, yeah, like almost 500 guests I'm approaching now.
500.
Feeling for how freaking early we are in this Bitcoin revolution and the sound money revolution. The MicroStrategy story might actually steal thunder and steal a lot of purchasing power away from the altcoins. The spam on Bitcoin and what should we put on the Bitcoin blockchain is a long debate already. I have two takes on that. Are we going gradually and very smoothly there? Or is there some revolution happening that might have some sort of war?
All right. Welcome back to the Real Hard Money podcast. This is actually one of my first episodes back since they canceled me on YouTube last year. I think right after I had an interview with this gentleman here. Today we have a special guest. I'd like to call a Bitcoiner friend of mine, Robin Seyr of the Robin Seyr podcast. This guy, I admire him so much because he's a dedicated Bitcoiner, bringing the stories of other Bitcoiners from around the world to light, no matter who they are, whether it's a guy like me simply talking about Bitcoin or just a holder, or even the main man himself, Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy, now Strategy. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Robin Seyr. How are you, sir?
Thank you so much. That was a very kind introduction. Yeah, like almost 500 guests I'm approaching now.
500
different guests on the podcast.
Wow, that's incredible. You know, you actually inspired me to actually start this podcast again and basically follow your blueprint, because you know the YouTube grind, you can just keep going and going, and if it's not a purpose or something that you feel deeply about, it could be a drag, right? So I think like talking to people like you, yourself, and others with like minds, I think it's really good. It keeps you going because Bitcoin's ever interesting, right? We can talk about Bitcoin for hours and hours.
It's something like, if you really like doing it, even if you don't get any money from that, you just keep going. I'm in a lucky situation where I actually can call talking with Bitcoiners my full-time job. Even without money, I would still do it like maybe once a week. I wouldn't have the time to do it every day because it's a lot of work if it's not paying. But it's such a passion of mine, finding out the orange pilling journeys, finding out the why Bitcoin matters, how Bitcoin is best applied, and where are we going in this Bitcoin world? Where are we in this Bitcoin cycles? So it's something that I'm truly passionate about, and that's how I kind of grew out the podcast, because I first started as like, oh, I don't have anyone to talk to about Bitcoin in my real life. I orange pilled them, but they're not that down the road as I am. So I needed to find on Twitter and YouTube and all the online platforms some Bitcoiner friends, as you call them, to talk with them about Bitcoins. And that's kind of how the podcast started. And yeah, if YouTube goes ahead and says like goodbye to me, I would just keep going on the other platforms, even if the pace is smaller or like decreasing or completely falling away. Maybe not in the same frequency, but I just keep going what I'm doing.
I love it. So if you guys aren't following him already, check him out on X, formerly Twitter, at Robin Seyr podcast, or what is it?
It's always Robin Seyr, my name, together, no nothing else. I reserved all the handles on all the platforms with my first name and last name, with nothing in between. In that way, it's easier to verify if it's actually me, because they're like Robin Seyr podcast with like things, and they are usually scams. They are always scams. Only one profile on each platform.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys check him out right there. His channel's growing incredibly. Congratulations on that. Last time I checked in with you, you had just interviewed Michael Saylor and you were about to interview Max Kaiser. You know, tell us about that experience. Can you talk about like what it's like to talk to so many different Bitcoiners? As a podcaster, I call you the Larry King of Bitcoin because you interview so many. But not just the common Bitcoiner, but you know, these high profile Bitcoiners as well. How do you find that experience?
You get a really good feeling for where we are currently. You get a feeling for how freaking early we are in this Bitcoin revolution and the sound money revolution. Because so there's two things. The first thing that you really get from all those conversations is the sense of what Bitcoin actually is, where we are in the journey, and the first all the things that Bitcoin touches. So when we talk about traditional values, running a family, being a good diet, doing sports, doing the proof of work, those things kind of are adjacent to Bitcoin, but not directly correlated to Bitcoin. It just comes when you go down the rabbit hole. All of a sudden, you're like, okay, I should work out. I do should proof of work. I should take responsibility. I do should self-custody of everything. I question things that otherwise I probably wouldn't have questioned. So Bitcoin takes it down those two journeys, I feel like. The first one is just directly about Bitcoin, what it is, where we are, and where are we going. We can go down that lane, and it's really fun to talk about that. And the second one is, as I said, all the adjacent topics of Bitcoin, even politics to a certain degree, and how governments will evolve with Bitcoin. It's really fun. And I named my podcast very intentionally just the Robin Seyr podcast, because I'm going to keep doing that all my life. And maybe in 10, 20 years, Bitcoin is kind of boring because everyone is using it. And Bitcoin is just a medium of exchange. Nobody has a fiat currency podcast right now, because that would be something very boring to have.
Right.
And nobody has a TCP/IP protocol podcast right now.
Right.
They might have a podcast about a technology that is built on top of TCP/IP, but not about the base layer. And Bitcoin is that base layer. So maybe there are things that are going to build on top of Bitcoin, like the payment layer. And this might be an interesting discussion also down the road. But right now, I'm just really, really focused on what is Bitcoin, where are we going, why it's important, and how can we get as smooth as possible to a Bitcoin standard. Because I think we will get to a Bitcoin standard. The question is just, are we going gradually and very smoothly there? Or is there some revolution happening that might have some sort of war? Doesn't have to be a physical war, but some sort of the incumbent system tries to fight back harder. Right now, we don't see the incumbent system really fighting hard. We see America embracing it. We see big institutions like BlackRock embracing it. Even China gets silent now on the Bitcoin topic. Maybe they even buy it in the behind the scenes. So right now, there's not a lot of fighting going on against Bitcoin. Here and there, yes, banks ban people when there's like Bitcoin transactions. Like there's small things happening. The fight is not over. If that continues, it will be a very smooth transition. And if we are successful in orange pilling as many people as possible, that transition will continue to be smooth. But if you're not successful in orange pilling as many people as possible, we will still get to a Bitcoin standard. I think that's inevitable right now. But the way to a Bitcoin standard might be a little bit more rocky than it's used to be, than it has to be.
Yeah, I can see that. It's definitely going to be some kind of war, like you said, some kind of currency war, a soft war. It's hard for power to let power go, right? But I feel like their financial system is kind of a Trojan horse in itself because of greed. Everybody wants to act in their self-interest, and you should. But I think people will come for the greed and they'll stay for the revolution, in my opinion. Yeah, so speaking of which, today's a great, interesting day because it's the first day of strategy, the convention for MicroStrategy and Strategy World, I believe it's called. And myself, I think I stand a little opposite of some of my Bitcoin maxi friends, and seeing that what Michael Saylor is doing, him and his team, in the financialization of Bitcoin, the wizardry, financial engineering is masterful. I think if it was going to be someone to do this, from the evil corp world of fiat, I think we couldn't have a better representative, honestly. I think Michael Saylor understands Bitcoin. I think he's totally bought in. I think he's a true Bitcoiner at heart. He sees what it is. He sees it as a tool for good. It's a thing for good. People when he does these million interviews, right? And they ask him the same question and he just takes a deep breath and then lets off another beautiful monologue like he does. He speaks incredibly about it. What I think is, like he said at the end of one of his interviews, no one asks me if I think it's good. And he says, I think it's a good thing for the world. And that is the thing that I think you alluded to when you said, the overlap of Bitcoiners, where, maybe I should eat better, maybe I should, take care of myself. You start thinking about a longer time preference and not just greed. What can I get now? What can I take from the next man? Because the debt system that we have is based on debt, right? But what do you think? What are your thoughts about MSTR, MicroStrategy, and Michael Saylor himself, and what they're doing? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Some Bitcoiners are split on it because they're consolidating. They have 500,000 Bitcoin now, right? So what do you think? Is that a good thing to consolidate in one place like that?
There are, so the first thing you kind of brought up is strategy, and this is such an amazing topic, and I want to get to that. There's another thing that you kind of brought up there, the impact of Bitcoin, and I also want to touch on that a little bit later. So let's stick with the first one, with strategy. I think Michael Saylor with MicroStrategy in 2020, and now Strategy B, opened a black hole for the fiat world to get transferred faster and quicker and in a accelerated way directly to Bitcoin. This is a how should I tell you? This is it's spectacular, and it's an extreme attack on the fiat world.
Speculative attack.
Yeah, speculative attack. That's my non-English speaking, non-native English speaking words.
Yeah, Kaiser always says that.
That's an extreme attack on the fiat network. And yeah, of course, we want to have as many Bitcoins on the pleb level as possible. It is not a concern for Bitcoin to have some concentration at some points with MicroStrategy or with other things, because it's a proof of work system, not a proof of stake system. With proof of stake systems, you automatically have a power with a stake. So if MicroStrategy would have, let's say, 10, 20, 30% stake of Ethereum, they wouldn't have a huge impact on the network itself. Right. Michael Saylor can have as many Bitcoin as he wants, even to an extreme. If he says, say he only owns 5 million Bitcoin, he doesn't really have an impact on the network. Yes, he can pay people with a lot of money to tell stories and to shift the narrative. But when you just look at the stake that he has, this does not give him any influence over the network. He might have an influence over the network because he is a public speaker in Bitcoin. He might have an influence on Bitcoin because he doesn't, but he could go ahead and pay people to put the narrative in a certain way. But he can also do that without Bitcoin. BlackRock can also do that. China can do that. A big player without any Bitcoin can also do that. So just the thing that he has a lot of Bitcoin doesn't give him any power over Bitcoin. That's the beauty of it. And because we have a proof of work system, those Bitcoin will over time be distributed. Maybe not the next 5 to 10 years. In the next 5 to 10 years, maybe he gets more and more. Maybe he grows to 800,000, 1 million Bitcoin. Who knows how many he can accumulate. But he gets now competitions with 21 Capital. He gets competitions from other publicly traded companies. And the more they do it, the more they acquire it, the less he will be able to actually stack, because the price will just run up. And at some point, those fiat engineering games might not work, because fiat is no longer there. And then you will actually have to work for every Bitcoin. I already have most of my income in Bitcoin and some of my expenses even in Bitcoin. There's a capital flow from Bitcoin directly to Bitcoin. So I no longer buy Bitcoin, because most of my income is in Bitcoin. So I earn Bitcoin every month. I haven't touched a Bitcoin exchange to buy Bitcoin for 5 months now. I sometimes have to sell Bitcoin to cover fiat bills. And the important thing for me is just, if I go in the first month, let's say in February, I go in with a certain amount of Satoshis. I want to have a little bit more Satoshis in the end of the month. That's all I'm trying to do, to stack some Satoshis. I'm 100% on Bitcoin. I only have a bank account to transfer some Bitcoin on there and pay some fiat bills. But there's like nothing on that bank account. It's just a medium of exchange side of things. So I'm already on that 100% Bitcoin standard where I have to earn Bitcoin. And coming back to MicroStrategy, they also have to actually work, and they are doing actual work also outside of just acquiring Bitcoin, of course. But at some point, they can only do actual proof of work to earn Bitcoin, because buying Bitcoin, and I was actually yesterday also on a podcast, and he asked me, oh, when do we know, when are we too late to Bitcoin? Because everyone thinks he's too late to Bitcoin. The moment you're no longer able to buy Bitcoin with fiat currencies is the moment you know you're too late. If you have to work to get Bitcoin, it might be, you might miss the train a little bit on that Bitcoin bandwagon. So right now we are super duper early. Everything under $1 million is so cheap. I cannot even explain how cheap it is. And that we are not only under $1 million per coin, we are actually under 100K still is fascinating. I mean, I don't know if when this will air, but maybe the market moves fast and we're already over 100K now when this happens. So this is one side. MicroStrategy, now Strategy B, opened a portal, a black hole for the fiat market to come in here, and all of the fiat people really like to engage with MicroStrategy, and they will engage more and more with it. It's the best performing asset. It's better performing than Nvidia. It's such a no-brainer for me that common investors outside of Bitcoin look at MicroStrategy and like, hey, maybe I put a little bit. I don't like that Bitcoin thing, but I like what MicroStrategy is doing, because they seem to have an extreme performance. So, and I also see we had in past cycles this altcoin season where people are like, hey, I want to have some altcoins to outperform Bitcoin. I see the same people now doing it with MicroStrategy.
Right.
MicroStrategy,
and it's a better altcoin, right? Because it's based on Bitcoin.
It's based on Bitcoin, and there's actual work happening, and actually for me something very useful. So the MicroStrategy story might actually steal funder and steal a lot of purchasing power away from the altcoins, because everything is now on Bitcoin. And if you want to have a faster Bitcoin performance, and Bitcoin is already crazy fast, you can just go ahead and have some strategy. You can even have a leverage on MicroStrategy, which is already a leverage on Bitcoin. So you have a leverage on a leverage if you really want to go fast. I don't recommend that. I don't do that. But if you want to do that, go ahead and do it. You do have the possibility now. So with all that being said, I think strategy is a net positive for Bitcoin. There are negatives, there are positives to it, but everything taken in consideration, it's something very positive for Bitcoin. It's very clever what he's doing, and the way he's doing is so smart and so disciplined. This guy is disciplined. I don't know if I told you, but I was at the 100K party for Michael Saylor.
Oh, I didn't know you went.
Yeah, it was a crazy experience.
Talk about that. Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about that one aspect, but I can talk about it later a little bit more.
Okay.
You have to imagine this is a multi-billionaire who is really rich, has like yachts, has everything you can dream of. I never saw him with even one drink the whole evening. I never saw him doing anything anything is like, because I felt like, okay, it's like a party, he can let go a little bit. No, he's super disciplined. This man is super disciplined and super focused on the mission of Bitcoin.
Right.
And I asked him this on my podcast, and asked him the question of, what is the most valuable thing you have that you cannot buy with money? And he told me Bitcoin, the mission of Bitcoin. Because before he discovered Bitcoin, he already went ahead and was planning to retire. He stepped away from being a CEO of strategy. That was planned before he even discovered Bitcoin. That was a 5-year plan that he already did before he discovered Bitcoin. So this was something very interesting for me, where Bitcoin gave him a second life. He gave him another mission in his life to pursue. And now he's driven, now he's motivated. And I see that a lot with Bitcoiners, that maybe we're like, okay, maybe 50, 55, going to the 60s. I want to retire now. No, like Bitcoin gives them a second life, a mission, something to
Yeah.
pursue. And I got a little bit sidetracked, but the
Yeah,
important
but
thing.
you don't see people like, oh, I want to talk about fiat for the rest of my life, or I want to talk about SMTP for the rest of my life. No, there's something there that people need to understand. And to touch on what you're saying, to kind of double click on what you just said, it's a spiritual thing. People don't get it. When you really get Bitcoin, it takes you to a spiritual place. That's why Max Kaiser's going with the high priestess and Bitcoin is Jesus and Bitcoin is God. He's being Max, right? He's being hyperbolic, right? But there's something to that because just like you said, it makes you reflect and you want to be better. You want to do better. You can see how it's for all of humanity. It's equality, it's for everyone. So it's not only people would say, yeah, I get Bitcoin. I understand it. I think it'll do well. First of all, if you don't own it, you don't get it, right? If you get it, first thing you do is I got to get more of it because I don't have enough Bitcoin. Right? That's what Michael Saylor did before he did anything with MicroStrategy. He got some for himself. And it makes you study it more. It makes you learn more about it. And the next thing is it takes you to, when you really truly understand it, I do think there is a spiritual component to it. Not to say that it's Jesus or God or a religion, but I think it makes you look internally in yourself and you start to question things that were told to you by the system or like powers that be, or even your parents, school, whatever. They didn't know any better because they grew up in a fiat world, and we now have Bitcoin. And I shudder to think, what if we didn't have Bitcoin now? It's a very dystopian outlook. But I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
It's actually a perfect transition to the second point that like I was saying before. I wanted to do the first one with strategy, second point, because I think, and this is something completely underrated, even the last person that gets into the Bitcoin standard will benefit from Bitcoin massively because Bitcoin is transforming society. So when we look at past inventions, we can start with the printing press and going up to the electricity and up to the internet, even going down like that. There's so many inventions down the road of history where we can always see something happen. So the first thing that happens is the people that embrace it the first and build businesses around the invention or buy stakes in that thing, whatever it is, it's depending. Like you cannot buy stocks of the printing press per se. In Bitcoin, you can actually buy the underlying asset, the underlying invention. So you have to build business around that. And those inventions level up humanity. So even the last person to ever read a book, the last person to like adopt the book as a medium of exchange after the printing press, this makes a person already better. This makes humanity better. Even if you're not the first one like Johannes Gutenberg to print the books in a more effective way. And before the printing press was invented, a book took like months, sometimes even over a year to print because someone had to write it actually down.
Right.
And it was only through Johannes Gutenberg where he made it possible. I think the first 5 years he printed 180 copies of the Gutenberg Bible. There's another aspect. Most of the first books were very religious books. I think the first like 5 million or 10 million books were like very religious books in the majority of it. Another interesting aspect as Bitcoin gets sometimes really connected with spirituality, with religion and all those things. But the point I was trying to make is Bitcoin will transform humanity on a very deep level and uplift humanity for everyone. Even if you don't like Bitcoin, even if you hate Bitcoin, it will make your life better because we get better money. And the same way as it's good that everyone can read and write books and consume information, and information is free, available with books, and then with the internet and electricity and with the phone and the telegraph and everything like that, those all are innovations that made everything better. Yes, there are people that lose out on things. Like there is some guy that bought 10,000 horses, and Henry Ford came along and had an idea. He lost something because he didn't see it coming. There's some there's always losers and winners in massive transitions of that. And the winners are those who embrace the new technology and having informed opinions and really diving deep on those. And the losers are those who are ignorant and arrogant against, or maybe even lazy against new innovations. It's also something that I discovered. People that don't get Bitcoin have 1 out of 3 things. They either are ignorant, lazy, or arrogant. And most people, because I don't think that anyone is too dumb to understand Bitcoin. Everyone who can read and write and have like some basic knowledge skills and some basic math skills, like most people, especially in the developed world, can understand Bitcoin. Yes, there might be like a small portion that might actually not, like they have some brain disease. Like obviously I'm not talking about those, but most people are clever enough to figure out Bitcoin. Why they're not doing it? They're either ignorant against Bitcoin because they're like, I don't want to deal with that. I'm just pushing it away. They're arrogant, saying no, like I know a better Bitcoin. I know I think gold is better. Or I store my money in real estate. It's a better store of value. No, like look at the facts. The last 10 years, the last 5 years, pick any time frame you want. Real estate is crashing against Bitcoin. Everything is crashing against Bitcoin. Unfortunately, there's a site called Priced in Bitcoin, and it's currently down. I love the site. If it's down for too long, I have to build it myself.
It even crashed against Bitcoin, huh? Bitcoin took it down.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's all. I feel like we're like preaching to the choir. We're like, yeah, Bitcoin, I love it. Yeah, I love it too. Tell me, let's get into some hot takes. Give me your hottest take, Robin. Your hottest take that, sometimes you might be hesitant to even say out loud on the air. Give me something raw and hot.
I don't know how raw and hot it is, but people seem to disagree with that. I spend my Bitcoin. I use Bitcoin as money. I don't think it's something that should be controversial, but every time I say it, like, how can you spend Bitcoin? You understand it? Like, you will sell it now, and like you will be like the pizza guy. And I'm like, yeah, I get it, but I earn in Bitcoin, so I have to spend in Bitcoin, right? Like, what else should I do? Should I take out credit? Yeah, it might be a good idea, but I don't want to deal with credit. I'm not a Michael Saylor. I let Michael Saylor do a speculative attack and do the fiat engineering, the fiat money engineering. I myself, I like spending my Bitcoin. I spend Bitcoin every month. I pay a freelancer in Bitcoin. I convert Bitcoin on my balance sheet, do fiat to pay fiat bills with it. I sell Bitcoin all the time, and I earn Bitcoin all the time. The important thing is that you have a little bit more Satoshis at the end of the day. So like every month you get a little bit more. I don't know how hot this take is. I think it's pretty uncontroversial, but I always get like backlash of that. Like,
never sell your Bitcoin, right?
Exactly, but maybe you should spend it. Maybe you should just use money as money. Like Bitcoin is money, so why not use it as money? It's not only a store of value. It's also a medium of exchange and unit of account, and it's really powerful. Once you can switch to a unit of account of Bitcoin, you price everything in Bitcoin, and you're like, do I really need that shit? And yeah, it makes a difference. And also using it as money is something very, very, and that might be very controversial. And Jeff Booth said it also, and even Jeff Booth gets a lot of backlash for that. If Bitcoin isn't successful as a medium of exchange, it might also fail as a store of value. There's a lot of good arguments against that. There's a lot of good arguments for that. I'm not 100% sure on that, because Bitcoin is super important as a medium of exchange, and it already is a medium of exchange for me personally. But if it completely fails as a medium of exchange, it definitely doesn't have the full potential that it could have. Because gold now is a big asset, big store of value, and also is not a medium of exchange at all. Right. Like Bitcoin is more used as a medium of exchange than gold.
Yeah.
But it's still a big asset. But how big would it be if it would also be a medium of exchange and then store of value?
Right. Let's take a minute for our sponsor, Satosis, your gateway to revolutionizing the Bitcoin experience. Discover innovative solutions tailored for a seamless journey in the world of Bitcoin, like products featuring Spondylix, Unlock the potential of Spondylix, an advanced automated peer-to-peer trading station that harnesses the power of Bitcoin Lightning Network for instant low-fee transactions. Spondylix not only facilitates fast and private Bitcoin trading, but also serves as a convenient access point for users to buy and sell Bitcoin in various locations. With user-friendly operations and minimal regulatory overhead, Spondylix significantly enhances the accessibility of Bitcoin, supporting businesses, charities, and individuals eager to embrace the world of Bitcoin. Piggy Tips. Transform how you receive tips and donate with Piggy, the smart Bitcoin-powered device that generates dynamic QR codes for effortless microtransactions. Designed for businesses and individuals, Piggy enables you to accept secure and borderless contributions while promoting Bitcoin adoption every step of the way. And Mint. Embrace the future of Bitcoin ownership with Mint, a groundbreaking hardware wallet that acts like a physical banknote. With complete offline security and a tamper-evident design, Mint offers peace of mind, allowing you to store and transfer Bitcoin securely until you're ready to spend it. Are you ready to elevate your Bitcoin journey? Visit satosis.tech, SATOSYS.tech today to explore these innovative products. Engage with our community, and for inquiries, feel free to reach out and discover how Satosis can transform your interaction with Bitcoin today.
If Bitcoin fails as a medium of exchange, it will not also fail completely as a store of value, but it will miss out on a massive amount being bigger as a store of value. Because then all of a sudden, if you can exchange it as a medium of exchange and also then later as a unit of account, a lot of people will just opt in a Bitcoin standard and have Bitcoin 100%, 80%, 90%, 70% on their personal balance sheet.
I think that it's the other way around. I think that if it does not succeed as a store of value, it will fail as a medium of exchange because people won't want to trust it and put their money into it. Kind of like Saylor says, it's digital capital, it's digital property, right? This is the market, the people that buy houses, real estate, just for land banking, just for investment. They're turning the houses into a financial product, which it shouldn't be. It uses for a utility. People who buy art, people who invest in all of these other things so that they store their wealth throughout time. This is the market that I think Bitcoin will gobble up and become a black hole and swallow up, right? But if it does not do that, I don't think people would even be interested in Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. Maybe, perhaps, because it's uncensorable, right? It's censorship resistance, and no one can stop it. So there's that. It's the combination. It's the beautiful combination, amalgamation of all of these tenets and principles that Bitcoin has. It just comes together that makes it unlike anything else that we've ever seen. It's truly unconfiscatable. It's truly decentralized. It's truly unstoppable. It's censorship resistant. All these things together, I mean, it's hard for me to, like, speaking with people like you, we get it, we understand it, we're kind of in our bubble, and we kind of wonder, like, why don't, the regular person, normies, get it? Why don't they get it? What do you think? Why don't they get it? Like you said, fearful, you said ignorant, arrogant, or lazy. I think it's a lot of fear in that because a lot of people are just sheeple, right? They need to be told. They need to be, told it's okay to invest in this thing. But I think the fear is really what holds people back from this new thing. It's so new.
I want to touch before a little bit on what you said with store of value because it's super interesting and this is exactly how I also think about if medium of exchange fails, store of value will not be at full capacity. The same way the other way around. If store of value fails, medium of exchange will also not be at full capacity.
I think it holds more weight with the store of value, in my opinion. What do you think?
Store of value is, if you look at price action, the more important thing. We have, $500 trillion problem with store of value. That's like the total addressable market. And then there's maybe like another 50 trillion or like 100 trillion, maybe, I don't know, like whatever the amount is for medium of exchange. So the amount, the opportunity for store of value is way bigger than the medium of
Right.
exchange side of things. But I think the medium of exchange side of things is important for Bitcoin capturing the whole store of value side of things. So as you said, the combination is the beauty. We have
the
now
combination.
gold with fiat together. That's why we have the 500, 600, 700 trillion opportunity with Bitcoin. Just the store of value that is just gold and is just outperforming everything. Yeah, it's probably is still a really big asset, probably the biggest one, probably like 2x bigger than the 10 next biggest ones. But if it's also used as a medium of exchange and unit of account, this will make Bitcoin such a even way bigger asset. I have to dive deeper in my third episode with Jeff Poof on that. I did a second one with him, and he said on this, and the second one he said exactly that. If Bitcoin fails at a medium of exchange, it also will fail as a store of value. And I'm not fully with him on that, and I didn't dig deep enough on the second one, because I think Jeff Poof is one amazing thought leader in Bitcoin. He's always like 5 steps ahead of most people. So I want to dig deeper in his theory around that. So I'm not fully with him. I think even if Bitcoin is never any medium of exchange, which we already have, like we already have medium of exchange side of things. But even if this goes away again, there will still be some market for Bitcoin as a store of value. I just think with medium of exchange, it will be significantly bigger. So I do think we need both of them. And if we have both of them, the unit of account will just come automatically.
We will. I mean, that's what the layer 2 is for. That's what the medium exchange, layer 2, Lightning Network, Liquid, whatever that is. Leave that over there. We have the Triflin's dilemma. Do you want speed? Do you want security? Or do you want decentralization? And, pick 2. So we pick security and decentralization and let layer 2 handle the fast transactions, Visa-like actions and stuff like that. Robin, let me ask you, the hottest thing this week is the dust up in the battle royale in Bitcoin Core and the debate between whether people are putting basically graffiti or junk inside of the Bitcoin blockchain. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first time this debate kind of came up with like ordinals and I think it was like
inscriptions.
2020, I think, yeah, what was it? Was it 2021 or 2022? Somewhere along those lines. It comes up again now, but the spam on Bitcoin and what should we put on the Bitcoin blockchain is a long debate already. I have 2 takes on that. The first thing is, I think Bitcoin is money and should be used as money, and everything that is not money doesn't serve the original purpose of Bitcoin. But also, if a little bit graffiti on the blockchain of Bitcoin will bring Bitcoin down, then it never was as good as we thought it is. So Bitcoin has to withstand those small, I don't want to even call them attacks, but if Bitcoin cannot handle this, like, what is Bitcoin then? Bitcoin will power through there. Bitcoin lived through way worse. The block size was really, 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 really bad. That
I was there for that. Yeah, that's when I basically, like, my introduction, came in right in the midst of all of that. And then, like, Roger Ver, I actually interviewed Roger Ver in Mexico in Acapulco, 2018. And it was like right after this stuff. I'm going to repost it one of these days. But the block wars, it was a very uncertain time. Which way is this going to go? Because even Lynn Alden was like, when she was looking at it at that time, she didn't make a choice left or right. She wanted to see how it played out. And it was resilient. Like you said, it survived. And they went the right way. But my concern is, the thing that makes Bitcoin beautiful is the trustless factor. And trustless sounds like a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing, because I don't have to trust you. You don't have to trust me. We trust the system, right? You remove the human element of it, in which you can be corrupted or make errors or be error prone, right? Rules with no rulers. This is the beauty of it. Now, it's almost like an attack vector to have these programmers, Bitcoin Core programmers, because we're relying on these people. At the end of the day, people ask me, like, well, what if somebody forces people, put a gun to their head, or other pressures? I tied your family up in the basement, put this in the code. There's whole types of propaganda and psyops that happen that, even we get fooled by. So, to make things look like it's okay. These things that are introduced like this, the little graffiti on here, I think these are small, like mission creep type things, like, okay, get them to accept a small yes, and then a medium yes, and then a bigger yes. Even if it's like 10 years from now, that's why we have to nip this in the bud. I think we have to be vigilant because the human aspect is the attack vector on Bitcoin, in my opinion.
It's only, and you're very right, because Bitcoin is most importantly a social revolution, not a technical one. Of course, we need a technical revolution on it, but you can copy the Bitcoin code one-on-one tomorrow, put a different name on it, and nobody will buy it, because it's not about the open source code or improving that code. It's about what Bitcoin is really. I have to quote Jeff Proof again, and he says it a lot. We are Bitcoin. We are the social revolution behind Bitcoin. Each and every single node, each and every single person is so important in Bitcoin. So It absolutely does matter what are we saying and what are we doing in Bitcoin and what are we allowing. That's why, and I love that you brought up this small nipping. That's why, maybe not. It's not a problem to increase the block size a little bit. Like, let's do it like 5x or like 7x, something like that. It might not actually be that bad. But what if we increase it then again and again, because we already increased it once, and then you have more and more increasing, and all of a sudden you're in a situation where only big players can run a full node, and then all of a sudden we are no longer decentralized. So those small things, opening a small door, can be very bad for Bitcoin. Like
dangerous.
Having some small virus in your system, and that's virus spreading within the system, all of a sudden the whole thing falls down because one small virus was let in at the door. That's why it was so crucial that we did not let this block size war in with a small increase. And you can even make an argument, a logical one. Like the price of 1 terabyte of storage fell down in time because it gets cheaper. Then we can also increase the block size. No, we should not. Like, why should we increase the block size? What argument is there to actually increase it? So in the same way, we should tackle all the things and will be really vigilant with everything that people are putting on top of Bitcoin and doing with Bitcoin, and we have to be very careful. Right now, I don't see it as a problem because they don't really change the protocol right now. They just like putting data on the blockchain, which they have to pay for, which now is super cheap. That's why I also use Bitcoin on-chain transactions currently. When I send 1,000 euros in Bitcoin, it costs me like 70 cents. And that's nothing. If I would do the same thing, I have the great example because I have two freelancers. One I pay in Bitcoin, one in fiat. The one I pay in Bitcoin costs me for the transaction 70 cents. The one in euros costs me 5 euros something, and he also has to pay on his end then 10 euros. That's like 15 euros of fee because he's in Colombia and I'm in Austria. In Bitcoin, it's just 70 cents, no matter where he is. It doesn't really not matter what country. Currently, the transaction fees are really, really low, and they will not stay forever that low, obviously. And that's why those things are there. And it's a problem, but I don't think it's a block size war problem currently.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Anything on your mind you wanted to let the people know?
I think it's important, if you are listening to a Bitcoin podcast, that you realize that Bitcoin is a social revolution, as we said, and that you can take part in this social revolution in whatever way you want. So not everyone has to work full-time in Bitcoin, because there are not that many jobs in Bitcoin that everyone could work in that. And Bitcoin, end of the day, is just money, and you should use it and not work in it. Whatever you're doing, if you are a mechanical engineer repairing old-timer cars, you can also be a part of the Bitcoin revolution when you are stacking Bitcoin, when you're orange billing your customers, when you're talking with your family about Bitcoin. We are all offline. We are all like offline or online soldiers in this information war for Bitcoin. And we can also play our part without being on Bitcoin podcast, without being on conferences, on stage or whatever. So I think that's a very important message, that whatever you're doing, you can play your little part in Bitcoin. If you think Bitcoin is the winning horse and you think it's the best horse in town, why not play a part in that so that horse actually succeeds, so that we get the good horse and not the bad horse?
Yeah.
I think having some impact in Bitcoin does not need, you don't have to write a Bitcoin book to have an impact on Bitcoin. Maybe just write a small article that you like, send it to some magazine, maybe they just pick it up. They do that if it's a good article. So you can play a part.
Or just share your journey on an X.
Absolutely, you can easily do that. Yeah, like just an X is like you can just share it and people. Maybe that's an encouraging message. When I started with X, I started posting every day on X. Back in the day, it was called Twitter, and I had around 400 followers. And a local news, like an economic newspaper, which is here for like 50 years and has a big audience actually in the European market, picked that one tweet up because that one tweet all of a sudden got a lot of attention. And they made a whole page with an interview from me, because they made a series on why are people investing in Bitcoin and what are like real world people that are not like Michael Saylor's thinking about Bitcoin. Was never again in any newspaper. But this was the first and last time so far that I was with Bitcoin in a newspaper. And I had 400 followers on Twitter, so I was definitely not known at all. I had no podcast, nothing else. I just had the Twitter channel, nothing else at all. And there was one tweet that went really good, and I got a request per email saying like, hey, do you want to be featured in an interview series? And they interviewed me like 1.5 hours on the phone. And it was a great article. Even people always think, oh, I need to have at least 10,000 followers. I need to have at least that amount. No, you can just do it. Just go on X and post. Like, and you don't even have to use a real name. You can just use some fantasy name. So you don't have to dox yourself. You can stay private and still be for Bitcoin.
That's a Bitcoiner thing, right? You could just do stuff.
Absolutely. And you don't have to do it online also. Like if you really don't want to be involved with social media, I get that, then just do it offline. Like talk about Bitcoin with your friends, your family. That's probably the best thing anyone can do. Orange pilling their loved ones. If you know there's a flood coming, don't you want everyone to be on a boat? Should you not advocate for wife to be on a boat, for your kids to be on the boat, for your mom, for your dad, for your uncle, for your cousin to be on that very boat? Don't you want to take, like if you don't want that, then there's something wrong with you, I think.
Yes, I've been trying to orange pill my family for about 8 years. A couple of them, my sister actually took the orange pill, which is good. But one's a realtor, Khadija. What's up, Khadija? She's always got some kickback for me. But what I say is just look around. Maybe you haven't peeked in on Bitcoin in the last 5 to 1 year, whatever, in a while. Look around. The government's totally flipped their stance on it. They're embracing it. Hey, did you know there's a Bitcoin reserve Trump just put in? Hey, did you know they're repealing all of these choke point 2.0 laws they had on Bitcoin? You know, hey, did you know there's an ETF that you can just buy Bitcoin on the stock market? A lot of people don't know these things that we just kind of take for granted because we're like glued to Twitter, X all day. Hey, did you know that this country is buying it? Did you know El Salvador, it's you know, it's standardized currency there. And all of these things, you know, Bhutan. Hey, did you know Putin and China, they're trading in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies? We haven't had this amount of tailwinds ever. It's the most bullish news I've ever seen since got into the game in 2017. Imagine this news, 2017, we would have went straight to 100K, straight from like 2K to 100K. No problem, no problemo. So what I believe is they gave up the ghost already. The answer is already here. The Bitcoin has won already, but people don't know it because one, saying that we need a Bitcoin reserve. Why? Any answer that you give in the positive is already an assertion that the dollar is not significant enough or sufficient. right? And then the other thing is what Michael Saylor's doing. He's financially engineering this. He's offering better. He's taking away the volatility and offering these fixed financial products in the form of convertible debt and other things, offerings like Strike and Strife at rates that are blowing away the competition. Usually these corporations would get these kind of corporate bonds for 5%, something around that. He's offering 30, 35. You can share in the upside. I mean, it's not even a question when you compare the two. So, and he's giving them all different price points and different options, and he's addressing very distinct portions of the market. And he's just, like you said, he's opening this black hole to let the capital flood in. And what is that doing? That's setting the precedent. Well, this financial structure is built on Bitcoin, it's built on rock, it's built on granite. The fiat financial structure, you just went long on my end, but for some reason. Do you see that?
It's really interesting when you look at what's going on with Bitcoin and what massive amounts that come in. I don't know. It's a real tough topic to see it.
Let me finish my thought. So they gave up the ghost already, is what I'm saying. It's already, they've admitted that what we have now is not sufficient. It's already won. And Saylor's proving this by the way he's doing the convertible debt offerings and how it's outperforming traditional finance. When now we have 21 Capital coming in, Cantor Fitzgerald with Jack Mallers as the CEO, to compete with Michael Saylor. I put a post up there. I was like, hey, Saylor's just thinking, come on, compete with me, guys. He put the playbook out there, right? It wasn't for nothing. Come on, compete with me. That's what I want. Because when you compete with me, I'm going to get stronger. You're going to make the price go up. You're going to take it off the market, right? And if you don't compete with me, you're going to be weaker. You're going to die. And it's just going to become more salient, more crystallized, more clearer for the people in the cheap seats. Even they can see it. People in the peanut gallery that aren't too smart. Everyone, layman's, they'll be able to see, well, I used to save. I used to have a bank account that would give me 0.05% in the savings, right? And inflation is what? Crazy. They say it's 3%, but it's really like 20% in my opinion. It's off the hook. It's off the chain. You can't, the new hurdle rate, just like the show from the MSTR boys, the new hurdle rate is Bitcoin's CAGR year over year. If you're not beating that, what's to talk about? You have to have a really great idea. 90% of companies fail after 5 years. That's just a fact. So is it more risky to buy Bitcoin, or is it less risky to buy Bitcoin? It's looking more and more every day. It's less risky. If you look at portfolios, Sharpe ratio, after 20 years, it's just going to be hard it's going to be a risk to your career if you don't have Bitcoin or you don't recommend Bitcoin. Or why didn't you? Your customers and clients, why didn't you recommend this? How could you totally have missed this? How are you a financial advisor, right? So I think we already won. People just don't know it. Again, like Saylor says, you want the thing that's unstoppable, right? And people don't understand it yet. And that's the thing. You don't sell the winner to buy the losers. That's my thing. So just to switch to that real quick, what do you think about 21 Capital with Mallers?
It's as I said in the beginning, it's strategy finally gets competition, real competition. Maybe let's see what they are able to do. I think Jack Mallers said in an interview that he wants to acquire more Bitcoin than strategy has. I'm not 100% sure. I think I saw a clip on Twitter. He said something like that, but I could imagine that he says something like that. Yeah. I'm not sure he can actually do that. I think Saylor and strategy has a massive advantage, massive first move advantage. So yeah, let's see what happens. The bigger point here is there will come a lot of competition. 21 Capital is just the first real one. Obviously, there are other publicly traded companies that do similar things with similar scientific and stuff like that, where publicly traded companies are buying Bitcoin using financial engineering. But 21 Capital, with that focus on like acquiring Bitcoin and using the fiat system, that's really, really really cool to see. And I'm just looking forward to see how those two companies will be in 10 years. Both companies probably will do very good, even though, and I always say that, I only hold Bitcoin. I follow Michael Saylor's advice to buy directly Bitcoin and not Strategy B. And I think this is, for me, that Zen moment of, I have Bitcoin, I have it in cold storage, I have it for myself, I'm 100% in Bitcoin, not more, not less, and just living my life and focusing on what I can do for the community.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think this is a good place to end it. But before we get out of here, just like we said, the governments are adopting it. We have all these tailwinds at our back. I mean, it just feels like takeoff time. The M2, we're about to catch up to the M2 global money supply. Everybody's thinking it's a up, in May, up in June. Some people saying the cycles are dead. The Bitcoin cycle, 4-year cycle, is dead. I think it'll just have less effect. But let's just have fun because, some people, Kathy Woods just came out and upped her prediction to 2.5 million per Bitcoin in 2030. I've even heard one of the Bitcoiners I follow, he 70 billion for Bitcoin per Bitcoin. I don't know what year he had it at, but let's Robin, let's hear your take, your price prediction. Where's Bitcoin going to be?
I recently put a tweet out saying 0.1 Bitcoin will retire your whole family, and 1 Bitcoin is FU money, and everything above that is just generational wealth for forever probably. I think most Bitcoiners are too bearish on Bitcoin. Most people completely underestimate it in the long run. I'm thinking 20, 30, 50 years from now. Then always people come to me, I will be dead in 50 years. First of all, you don't know that. How will you know that you're actually dead in 50 years? Maybe medical things advance. Maybe your head gets screwed on a robot once it's dead and you can live forever. You have no clue if you're actually dead in 50 years. Even if you're 80 years old now, you have no clue if you're actually dead in 50 years. There's a lot possible with modern medicine, but outside of that, even if you're dead in 50 years, it's still important to acknowledge where does this thing go long term. And because of your more short-term or medium-term question of like 5 years in 2030, I think it's really hard to say where Bitcoin will go. It can be at let's say 500,000, it can be at 5 million. The range is really big for me short term because there's a lot of things that can happen along the way. What if Apple decides next year to put half the balance sheet in Bitcoin? I don't think this will happen, but then I think we will be way beyond 1 million in 2030. So it all depends on short-term factors that are not in our control. And we try, we want to put labels and we want to put some models on top of Bitcoin. We had the power law, we had Plan B, the stock to flow model. We have so many different models. Michael Saylor also put a model out there. Kathy Woods, like all those great people put their own models on top of Bitcoin. But at the end of the day, and Michael Saylor actually says that once a big enough player comes in, all your models are destroyed.
Once Godzilla steps on the playground,
absolutely,
all your models are destroyed.
Yeah, if you play soccer in a like a small league where there's like not a lot of talents in there and they're all doing it as a hobby, and then you exchange the one team where all the star players are, they will destroy the other team and the outcome will be completely different. So once the big players come into Bitcoin, and they're already starting to pile in, now they are towing in, they are testing the waters. BlackRock is testing the waters. America is testing the waters. The big players are just testing the waters right now. And there's a lot of big players like the magnificent Apple, Google, Facebook, all of those haven't even tested the water yet. We are so freaking early. But once they are doing, like once one of the big seven says like, we like Bitcoin and we are putting our balance sheet on there, all the other CFOs get the question like, oh, like what are you doing with Bitcoin? And they're like, oh shit, like now we have to do a Bitcoin strategy all of a sudden. What happens if Google, Tesla already has some small Bitcoin strategy. Like, what if they all went ahead and put 5%, 10%, 15% of their wealth in Bitcoin? This completely changes the game. That is ridiculous to think that
Right.
it just stays at that level, and 0.1 Bitcoin will never be a lot. Most people, even Bitcoiners, in the long run, too bearish on Bitcoin, and sometimes a little bit too bullish on the short term, I feel like.
Yeah. The possibilities are enormous. We can't even fathom when these things, just like you said, one company could just change everything. Even just the purchasing of for the reserve here in America could just start a flood of other chain reactions from other countries and nation states. You know, people are buying, and then we'll have purchasing on the nation state level, the state level, the city level, the home office level, you know, the personal level, all at the same time, all around the world, globally. And I think we're in for a better, brighter future. Like I always say, come on over to Bitcoin. It's better over here. It's brighter. It's hope over here. And over there, it's a little bit dystopian, you know. I think that's a good place to end it. Robin, thanks for coming on. Always great talking to you. Always good energy. Always a good discussion. Let the people once again know where they can find you before we get out of here.
Just type in my name in your favorite platform. I'm big on Twitter, I'm big on YouTube, but I'm also on Spotify, on Fountain, on Apple Music. I don't have a website, nothing like that. So I'm not existing outside of the platforms currently. I'm working on things to also have something like that. But yeah, I also don't have anything to sell. I don't have to. I cannot shield any products or services. The only thing that you can buy is my podcast, and you can buy that with your time. And I hope it's a valuable trade to do.
You heard it, folks. The humble flex. He's big on X. He's big on YouTube. You heard him. That's right. Check him out. That's Robin Seyr. I'm Caliph Harold. This was the Real Hard Money Podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me. That was awesome.